Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have a really exciting interview ahead of us about retraining, getting a PhD, and launching businesses after 60. Today, you'll be meeting Ann Moir-Bussy, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who helps women in midlife with their transition to the afternoon of life. Welcome to the show, Ann. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Suzy. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
I could listen to your accent all day. I love it when I have a guest from Australia. It's so much fun. Now, I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We're going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues may have been getting in the way to some extent and might be challenging for you in your life as well as being a business owner. So we'll get to all of that. First, let's start out with how old you are, how long you've been an entrepreneur, a little bit about your story, your journey, and what it is that you do in the world. Take it away.
Well, Suzy, I'm 81, and it doesn't feel like 81 at some level. At other levels, it does. As we were saying beforehand, you can't move quite as quickly. You can't do things as fast as you want to do them. But that's the only thing that's different is the body slows you down just a little bit. So when did I start doing what I'm doing? Good question. It started actually early life. I grew up in a very traditional Christian sort of background and became a missionary. So I spent the first half of my life working as a missionary and particularly working among Indigenous people of Australia, up in the northern part of Australia. And I was a teacher, so training students, teaching students. And as you would know, you put so much in early life into being the best you can and wanting to give everything that I burnt myself out. And I became quite ill in the middle of life.
Oh, wow.
And also, I think it's that stage, you know, the middle of life, you begin to question all sorts of things and you begin to think differently and wonder what it's all about. And illness, of course, stops you in your tracks and you start to think, what am I really doing? And so I made a big choice to leave that work and retrain myself as a counsellor, as a psychotherapist and a counsellor. And that was a long journey, just retraining and then very slowly knowing nothing about business or entrepreneurship or how to earn money, helping women and men and talking to them and encouraging them to take hold of their life and to change. And then I went back into teaching, but this time teaching in universities and training students to be counsellors. And I did that in many parts of many different universities, including teaching in Hong Kong, training Chinese students how to be counsellors.
And I have to just say, what haven't you done? You've done so much. And going back to school and getting a master's and PhD at 65, come on. Doing all that traveling again is interesting too. So as soon as you said that you were in Hong Kong and training people all over, I started to think, I wonder if you're going to get burnt out again.
Well, I did my PhD because the university I was working at in Australia ran a master's degree for students in Hong Kong at a university called Shuyuan. It was a technical college then. It became a university, Shuyuan University, on the island in Hong Kong. And we used to go across 2 or 3 times a year and spend a week doing intensive schools. And I'd done that a couple of times. And then when I decided to do a PhD, I wondered, how do these students who were learning how to be counsellors in an English-speaking program with Western ideas, how did they translate that into their own culture? So I then asked the head of the department there if she'd supervise my PhD, and I learned lots about Chinese culture and then interviewed 19 Chinese now counsellors who'd all done their training to see how they transformed what they'd learned into their own culture.
That's
how
fascinating.
they
That's fascinating, Ann.
It was really fascinating and just learning so much and learning the importance I think it comes back into counseling and working with women, working with anybody, that you need to know where they're coming from and work with them at that level of where they are and help them to understand what were the influences in their life, where have they come from, what is their thinking like, what are the cultural family traits that they've inherited that may be holding them back from where they are. And that's part of the journey. I think that's what I did a lot of, is where did I come from? Where did I learn all this? Is this my voice or is this someone else's voice? Is this my story or is this someone else's story?
So powerful. Those questions are so important. But, another part of the journey you just glossed over very quickly, but it's massive for anybody who's an entrepreneur, is figuring out how to be an entrepreneur. It's such a steep hill to climb. And you're right. Knowing how to make money, being comfortable with money in a way that, you were a missionary, and selling and knowing that sales are crucial to actually helping people, in what you're trying to do. And you're a registered counselor and training you've been doing so much. It's unbelievable. But I, like you, that entrepreneurial piece was so exciting to me, but it was so huge.
Yes. And this is what I find it still is. I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning the art of giving people value, but then how to sell it. You've got the answers for them, or you've got the solution that will help them if they will take it on. But helping them to realize that and to show your own value, that's really difficult. Because when you grow up in a strong Christian atmosphere, you don't put yourself forward. So learning how to sell, as you say, the word sell, how to market, that's one of the biggest learning curves, I think, that I've had to go through. And I started a series of podcasts myself, but I didn't know how to sell when I was doing them. So, and I wrote articles, I've written books, but how to market them and how to sell them is really difficult. And it's only, I suppose, in the last 2 years that I've taken the courage to step out and say, can I come on your podcast? Can I let people know how important this journey is? Can I, share my story? So it's an ongoing journey. And I think women need to know not to give up, because you're constantly evolving, constantly learning new things and putting yourself in the world for the purpose that you're put here for, which is to be a leader, to be someone who shares love with others, and to let go of all those limiting beliefs that have been dumped on us.
Dump is the right word, man. Dumped. So what is the name of your podcast?
It's called Alchemy in the Midlife Kitchen.
Oh, that's an amazing title.
Yeah, I called it alchemy because, as you know, the old ancient alchemists took raw material from the rivers and tried to transform it into gold. And then it became a psychological process that, and in all my counseling with people and with women, I say to them, you're bringing all those experiences, the good and the bad and the messy and the positive and the difficult things from the morning of your life, you're now bringing them into the afternoon of life. But you first of all have to come into this alchemical kitchen, that space where you work with this material, with a guide, with someone who will help you, and you transform it into gold for the afternoon of life. Because within you is so much gold. Within you, if only you tap into your intuition, tap into those beautiful things that you have, and let go of all those negative images that have been put on you, and develop your crone wisdom, because the crone is the woman who crowns her wisdom. And this is what you are to become, a crone, crowning the wisdom that you have and then giving it to others.
And it's so rewarding to mentor, to give it to others and to show up in that capacity. Women typically our age find it incredibly fulfilling. It's so good. So what would you say is the reason, like the main reason that you were resistant or hesitant or slow to put yourself out there, now that you have more perspective about what was going on for you? Do you have a clear understanding of what was holding you back?
Yes. I think, life is full of change, and we face a lot of uncertainty in life. And there's a wonderful person here that I've got to know quite well, a man called Joe Pane. And Joe runs a program called Emotional Fitness Formula. And his whole thing, he put the words on what I couldn't explain before, that your emotional fitness depends on your relationship with uncertainty, which is a beautiful way to put it. And we all face uncertainty. And for some reason or other, we either procrastinate, we're afraid, we like the comfort and the security, we're not sure where we're going. And so we need to sort of take that uncertainty and step out and do it. And that's a big growth pattern, I think, that women who want to become entrepreneurs or women who are setting off on that journey or developing themselves, that it's okay to step out. You don't fail, you just learn something new.
Exactly.
If you make a mistake, it's not a failure, it's a learning. And if we can step into that uncertainty and embrace that uncertainty, then we can move forward in such a different way.
It's so true. And even
others rather than yourself.
Yes, exactly. But even this idea that things shouldn't be uncertain, where there is no certainty, what we like to believe that there is. And I think if COVID taught us anything as a worldwide community, I think we kind of got the memo that even basic things that we always believed to be certain, that school would always be available in class, that you could always travel as long as you could afford an airplane ticket. Really basic things like that. It was a big wake-up call, I think, for everybody. But I think that's also part of the problem. Would you agree that just this belief that there should be more certainty than there is?
Yes. One of the Chinese philosophers said that the only thing we can be certain of in life is change.
Yes.
I like that.
I like that too. That's for sure. Okay. So one of the questions I love to ask my guests is to talk a little bit about challenges that you would consider midlife or aging related challenges. What's come up for you that has actually gotten in the way of you developing your business and, adhering to your priorities the way you want to?
That's a big question.
It is.
Because many things, I think, get in the way. And I think one of the biggest things that get in the way is our own mindset, our own thinking, that we've grown up or we're so used to the way we view the world, our perspective. You talked earlier about the perspective of how we look at things. And I think it's so easy to think there's no other way of seeing things than the perspective we have. And I remember recently saying to someone that I got in the car and I was driving down to the local shops and it was raining and the windscreen was muddy. And what do we do if the windscreen is muddy? We put the water on it, we squirt it, and we clean it. And our perspective is a bit like that windscreen. And I think what happens is it's very clouded because we said earlier, whose story is it that we're listening to? And quite often it's clouded with all the things we've learnt from parents, from school, from society, from social media, whatever it is. And our mindset is quite blurred and muddy, if you like. And we need to clean it. We need to clean our perspective because without a clean perspective, we can't move forward. So I think the biggest challenge was how to clean that perspective, how to look differently and see things differently. Can I tell you a little story?
I love a story. It is a podcast after all. Bring it on.
This is a story I read not so long ago, and I've told it to some of my clients who absolutely love it because it's about an old woman who lived in a village and she had two daughters. And one daughter was the daughter of, she'd married an umbrella maker and they needed rain. And the other daughter married a noodle maker and they needed sunshine. They were going to make noodles. But this woman was always crying and always upset. And the villagers said, "What's the matter?" And she told them the story of her daughters. And she said, "I worry about them because the eldest daughter, if it's not raining, her business will collapse. Everything will go wrong." And this is a good story for our businesses too. Everything will go wrong. And I really worry about her because then she can't make money. And then when it's raining and the sun's not shining, I worry about my youngest daughter because she can't make money. They can't make noodles. And they said to her, "Oh, that's sad." But they called her the crying woman. And one day she's walking along and she met a monk, a Buddhist monk. And he bowed and said hello to her. And she said hello. And he said, "Old lady, you look really, really sad. What's the matter?" So she told him the whole story. And he said, "We can fix that." And her eyes lit up and she said, "You can fix that?" He said, "Yes, it's easy." He said, "Come here." and leant over, and in her ear, he said, change your perspective. She said, what? And he said, well, it's really very simple, because you see, there are two sides to everything. So when it's raining, think only of how well your daughter with the umbrella business is doing. Look at the positive side of that and see how good she's doing. And then when the sun's shining, don't think about her. Think of the younger daughter and how many noodles she's making. And her face lit up and she said, I can try that. And she became the smiling woman.
Aww.
So it's a simple story, but it's about how do we change our perspective? And it's not as difficult as we think it is, because the ego puts in lots of excuses. The ego will say, oh, you can't do that. You're too old. It'll cost too much. What will people think of you? And that's what I learned to change that thinking.
So good. Now, another thing in your notes that you mentioned that really stood out to me is that no one taught you self-compassion, or that you deserve to be paid for the value that you were given. So tell me a little bit about that. So much of the work I do working with midlife women is about self-compassion. And when I first got into this work 10 years ago, it didn't occur to me that that would be such a big deal. But women are so hard on themselves. So is that what you were like too?
I was very much like that, because I think we forget we grew up in a society that was dominated by masculine principles. And the masculine principle is you have to be strong, you have to put up with it, you have to keep going. And women give that compassion to their children, they give it to their husbands, they give it to everybody else. And we spend the first half of our life giving, and we don't know how to love ourselves. I've said to women sometimes, can you put your arm around yourself and love yourself? And I've had a couple of women sit here saying, I can't do that. And then getting them to go back and talk to the inner child, the little girl that didn't receive love. And how do you give that little girl love and start to give it to her bit by bit? And that self-compassion, you can't give that to others if you don't give it to yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the biggest breakthrough for women is learning to give that love to themselves, learning to accept that there's a wise woman within them and that they are beautiful.
Yes. You know, and the other thing that you mentioned in your notes is that you had a few very difficult years with your parents and your sister and your husband. What was it like for you in those years that was just so difficult and needed so much from you when you were trying to pursue your own career, this entrepreneurial idea, all of this additional training and teaching? What was that like for you? How did you manage all of that?
I think I learned resilience fairly. It's something you need to learn, is how to be resilient and how to flow with it. And I'm also blessed by some of the friends that I have met, you know, people who've guided me or supported me, being able to talk to them, and also a deep spirituality. I think it's that sense of knowing that deep, you know, we're not our thoughts, we're not our feelings, we're not our body. There's something deeper and more beautiful, which is love. We come from love, we're going back to love. And it helps you to get through more difficult times. I think one of the most difficult was the beginning of this year, where I was really getting going, and I got the podcasts. I was, and at Christmas Eve, my husband got COVID, and it didn't test positive straight away. And then the day after Boxing Day, I went down with COVID, and we both were quite sick. And we had family, nieces, and their family had come all the way from Canberra, this 9 hours drive, to see us, and we couldn't see them. And then 2 weeks later, my older brother died suddenly. And then 2 weeks after that, my husband was getting sicker, and we went for checkups, and he had heart failure. And that ended up with seeing a heart specialist. So everything went on hold because we then had to go down, try and sort things out.
Oh, that's so much. I'm so sorry.
It's been a lot, but from it, we've learned a lot more. Like, again, using it as, you know, he had a dual chamber pacemaker put in, and he's on the mend now. But it was a long time sort of caring and looking after someone else. And in a sense, the business has been on hold. I'm still seeing clients, but advertising, marketing has been on hold. And so when I saw your journey of podcasting, I thought, now's the time it's coming out again, taking it out from being on hold and getting back into it. One of the difficult things, I think, is, of course, you know, you get tired. And so you learn to pace yourself in a different way.
If you're smart, you do. If you're smart, you learn to pace yourself in a different way. But yeah, that's very common. A lot of women I'm interviewing are talking about energy, that low energy has been a surprise and it is really affecting the way they work in a day because the energy, it's just not the same. And they find that they need breaks or they need just to schedule themselves differently. And
a granny nap after lunch.
Yeah, that would be very nice. Yeah, so that's definitely part of it. Now, another thing you mentioned is because you're 80, 81, you said, right? That you're saying that you're surprised with the amount of ageism that's still out there. I am too. So tell me where you see it.
Mostly the same as the way you started. You don't look it. You don't sound like it. I thought, well, who says what an 80-year-old is supposed to sound like or look like? Even when I was 60 and I was doing some further training and someone said once, but, you're over 60, you shouldn't be working. And I thought, why not? Oh, younger people should have jobs, not you. And it's wow. A funny sort of, again, the mindset that people have. And I think, again, it comes out of very dominant masculine principles, not just men. I'm not putting men down in that sense because many men go through this journey as well.
Yeah.
It's the principle of the balancing the masculine and the feminine. And we need both.
Absolutely. But it's funny because just before when we were doing our little pre-chat, I was very aware of saying it, that you didn't look your age, because I'm very aware of when people say it to me, and it really does shine a spotlight on ageism. So I have a thought of what 80 looks like. And even though I read your notes and I know you're a going concern with your PhD and launching businesses and all this stuff, still, I have a thought about what aging looks like. And I said to you, I wish we could just say you look great. But even with my sensitivity and my exposure, I had a preconceived notion. So I'm trying to talk about these things that I notice about myself more. And I'm getting good feedback about it. Like when I catch myself with a negative, wonky thought about aging, I'm just being very open to talk about it, because even if I don't believe there should be limits placed on age when people are capable and interested and energetic and creative, the thoughts still pop in. So it doesn't mean they need to stay in, and I don't need to be at the effect of them, but they popped in. And when you popped on my screen, I went, whoa, that woman doesn't look 80. Whatever that means.
Yeah, I think, and this may help other women as they're growing older too, we do need to take care of our health as best we can. The other thing that became important to me, and I learned this when I was teaching in Hong Kong, which was really good, was balancing what they call our qi, our energy. Qi is energy. And so I learned Qigong. Qigong is moving the energy. I mean, some people do Tai Chi. I did learn Tai Chi, but it was more complicated. But Qigong, there are simple exercises. And so usually we begin the day with at least some Qigong to balance the energy and to help focus. And the other thing is, as I said to you, the spirituality, that mindfulness of coming into that center and listening to what the body's saying, listening to what's emerging from within, so that you're trying to work in tune with that. I don't always do it very well, but that's, the way of trying to do it. And also then one of the Chinese masters that I learned Qigong from, his name's Chunyi Lin, and he actually lives in Minnesota now. He's grown up in China. He lives in Minnesota. And he says, put a smile on your face and take that smile to others. And he uses the word smile, start my internal love engine.
I love that.
Put a smile on your face.
Oh my
gosh. And I remember the woman in Hong Kong who was head of the department, who was so supportive when I was working there. And she said, when I leave the house in the morning, before I lock that door or close the door, I think, who am I going to bring love to today? And I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. Who am I going to bring a smile to today? Who am I going to bring love to today? And
that's
trying to do that. It's not, often I get caught up in my own aches and pains and thinking, but if you can move beyond that and focus that perspective, clean the windscreen, then we can keep spreading that message to others.
Definitely. And it leads into the next question I was going to ask you. I know you care deeply about helping women in midlife develop strong relationships with other women. Tell me a little bit more about why that's so important to you.
Midlife is transition. And I think a lot of women I've met anyway, they're getting to midlife, they're coming into menopause. As a woman said to me yesterday, she's 49 going to 60. I don't like my body. I don't like what's happening. I don't want to get old yet. I said, but you're not getting old. You're changing. You're coming into a most beautiful phase of your life where you've got the best part of your life, because now you've got wisdom behind you. You've got experience behind you. And if you can embrace this transition, then you can see there's so much more to life. You're not getting old. But so many women don't like their body or what's happening to them at that age. And they don't like the transition. They want to sort of go back, and saying, you can't go back. We can only go forward. And if you had someone else that was coming to you, what would you say to them? Oh, I'd tell them to love themselves. Well, do it. Love yourself. Come forward,
Yeah, it's so important for women to meet other women and be exposed to ideas like that, It can really change your point of view. And because that perspective is so important, getting different inputs. But yeah, like if you don't have different inputs, it's hard to grow in lots of ways. You need to get these ideas. And sometimes we don't even appreciate what we're thinking until we're responding to somebody else. We're reacting to something they've said. So what you're talking about with learning from other women and building these strong relationships is such a great source of inspiration.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's that uncertainty and fear of the uncertainty. And it's the same now, 81, aging, and, people around you are dying, and same age. We know that's going to happen. And either we can run away from it, or we have to sort of look at it and take one day at a time. And this is, what can I do today to love? How can I help someone else today? It's natural that we get a little bit concerned about uncertainty. Who's going to look after me when I'm old? Haven't got any children.
Yeah.
Where are we going to be? What's going to happen? All those questions come. But if we come back to that centering, that mindfulness of remembering who we really are and where we've come from, I think that helps to ground us, helps us to take things one day at a time. And that, I think, is what, if women realize you've got that experience, you've been through so much, you've brought up families, you've helped other people. Look at all the wisdom you've got, and what else can you have? So a woman recently, she's in her 60s, and she worked in aged care, and she got dumped because of her age, and in tears, and not in a nice way either, in a way that was quite negative. And how am I going to cope? This was my life. And gradually changing that mindset, cleaning up that perspective. And she's really looking forward to what she's going to do now.
Yeah, that's
she's
great.
Looking forward to being different, and she's got more time to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
How she's going to help people. And she still can help old people, take them shopping when they need to go shopping, do things. So she's just living her passion in a different way.
Yeah, so good. So what are you focusing now in your business? What's the next thing you kind of want to dive into or work on?
I've got an online program, and I'm wanting to update it. I'm wanting to incorporate a lot more of the mindset and the uncertainty, and how to master uncertainty in a woman's life, women and men, but because I focus on women, I think they need it. And I'm just wanting to make it much more accessible. So now is the time to just look at the modules I created, find a better way to present them, and put it out there as an online program that people can do. And to get many more women into this group of powerful women. It's a community we need to form, a community of women, or a tribe of women. I'm not really that fond of the word tribe. A family of women who all support each other, who know what the women behind them are coming through, and who've tapped into their own wisdom, and then they can help others too. And then support each other as they're aging and as they're coming through it. That would be my wish and my hope.
So good. So how can people best get in touch with you?
The best way is to either go through my website. If we're able to put that up there, like I've got...
Yes, I'll be adding the links in the show notes. But for now, you want to spell out your website name?
I have two websites. One's Embrace Life Now, and it's www. and then all one word, embracelifenow.com.au. And the other one is just my name, all run together in lowercase with no hyphen, Ann Moir-Bussy.com. And that one is specifically geared to women in the midlife.
And that's AnnMoirBussy.com. AnnMoir-Bussy.com. Awesome. And this has been a delight. Thank you so much for coming on, taking the time from your day or early morning. and
I'd like to finish. Can I read you a little poem?
Oh, absolutely.
This is a call to all women. Do you know the Alice Walker?
No.
Alice Walker, she was in that film, The Color Purple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's got a book of poetry called Hard Times Require Furious Dancing. And this poem, I think, is so important for women.
Well,
and it's called Calling All Grandmothers. We have to live differently, or we will die in the same old ways. Therefore, I call on all grandmothers everywhere on the planet to rise and take your place in the leadership of the world. Come out of the kitchen, out of the fields, out of the beauty parlors, out of the television. Step forward and assume the role for which you are created, to lead humanity to health, happiness, and sanity. I call on all the grandmothers of Earth and every person who possesses the grandmother spirit of respect for life and protection of the young to rise and lead. The life of our species depends on it. And I call on all men on Earth to gracefully and gratefully stand aside and let us do so.
That's beautiful.
And that's the call to all the women that you and I serve.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love your perspective. I love all this training that you've received from all over the world. And my background's in psychology. My master's is in psychology. So when I heard the way you were thinking about your thesis, it just was, and I commented on it when you mentioned it, it was just so interesting that you even thought that way. I love the way you think. You're bringing so much to your work, and the way you're helping women is just amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzy. Thank you.
All right. That is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with this show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.